All right, good morning, everyone. So happy to see you. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's good. So today, happy birthday, Father and Mother Moon, right? So, yeah, let's hear it. Last night they had an amazing broadcast from Korea because they're 17 hours ahead of us. So 4 o'clock in the afternoon for us was already 9 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning for them. So everything that happens in Korea is almost like almost a day ahead, 17 hours ahead. So every year, the start of the new Lunar New Year, we have these events. We used to have Heavenly Parents' Day, but now we celebrate that in April. But True Parents' Birthday and Foundation Day. So today is the Happy Birthday, Father and Mother Moon, right? Happy birthday! And then next Sunday will be Foundation Day. Foundation for the establishment of God's Heavenly Kingdom. I don't know how many of you have been able to watch, but there's been so many amazing events going on. And Father and Mother Moon always did this around the beginning of the Lunar New Year. It would have many conferences and world summits. Well, last week they had Think Tank 2022. And you can see all these different icons up there, all these different organizations, and each of them did different presentations exploring how do we build peace and bring harmony and healing in, particularly in Korea, but also in the whole world. So all of these are under the umbrella of the Universal Peace Federation. But you had the Summit Council for World Peace. Then you had the International Association for the Parliamentarians for Peace, and then the Association for Art and Culture for Peace, the Interreligious Association for Peace and Development, and then also the International Association for Peace and Economic Development. Got to get the business people involved, right? And then the International Media Association for for peace, right? Yeah, and you get the theme here. We're all about peace, right? So the Media Association for Peace, the Academicians for Peace, so that's all the professors, teachers for peace, school teachers. Yay, teachers! And then also that's not up here was also the International Association of First Ladies for Peace, right? The spouses of the heads of state. And so each one of them had different presentations. That one's connected a lot with the Women's Federation. Quite inspiring. Some of them were very interesting, and some of them were quite exciting because people were, had different points of view. Hey, but we can have different points of view, right? And it's important that we're able to talk and share and discuss people from different points of view. So we had some people that, on there they were talking I completely disagreed with. But that's fine. Because by disagreeing, we can also learn. We can develop and grow. It's a shame that our society, especially in America, has become so politically correct that you can't say anything that's contrary to what another person, or if you do, then that person will just shun you. That's a shame, because we really grow because of our differences. And this was showcased that. People, all different perspectives. Because what's the mission of our movement? Is to build what?
Peace.
Peace?
Family peace.
Family peace?
Love.
Cooperation. And all that adds up to what kind of world? A peaceful world and the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven on earth. That's our goal. Right? So all these things add up to how can we build the kingdom of heaven on earth. We've got to deal with the parliamentarians, the politicians. We've got to deal with the artists, right? People in culture. We've got to deal with the religious people. We've got to deal with the business people. We've got to deal with the academics. We've got to deal with the first ladies, of course. We have to deal with every aspect of life. And so that's what's so wonderful about this conference, is bringing all these different aspects of society together. So next week, today here in America, it's the celebration of Father and Mother Moon's birthday. But they had, it was last night for us, but 9 o'clock in the morning in Korea, they had a Chonoguk pledge service to commemorate the birth of Father and Mother Moon, our true parents, who we call our true parents. So next weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in Korea, so that'd be like Thursday night, Friday, and Saturday night for us, they're going to have the summit for peace on the Korean Peninsula. So this is also bringing a lot of very high-level people. If you were in, hopefully you can see a recording of the event last night, because for the first hour or so, we heard reports about all the planning that's going in, and they're wrestling things with because of COVID. It's very hard for people to get in, so they're trying to get waivers. Actually, the Prime Minister of Cambodia, he really wants to be there. He's one of the people one of the leaders in the reunification project, because Cambodia has relationships with North Korea, and he really wanted to be at this event. So, but all the visas said no, you have to be in quarantine for 10 days. Head of a country, they can't do that, go in quarantine. So he could get a waiver because he said, I want to meet with the president of South Korea. They said, you do? Okay, great. Instant gave him a waiver. So he's coming, he'll say hi to him, and then he'll come see true parents, right? That's so nice, to have people who were that dedicated and committed, and people participating. So, and because COVID is going back and forth, they're still trying to figure things out. They may do 20% present and 80% people are doing it online. So anyway, that's going to be exciting. Most of it will probably be broadcast, so please keep an eye out. It's such an exciting time we live in. Just to see the things that are happening right now, it gives you hope. When you hear so much negative stuff and people fighting and conflicts all over the place, to see people who can disagree with each other in a friendly way, and grow from it and develop, and all the energy and focus that's coming around this reunification. Most people think, Korea, Korea doesn't matter. But now, more and more, there's a tension coming to it. And there's more and more pressure and condition being built for the reunification of North and South Korea. Mother Moon's definitely determined to make it happen. So, let's see it. All right? We're all looking for it. So we're all making conditions. Keep that in your prayers, too, for the reunification. Also, next Saturday will be the Sunhawk Peace Prize. Again, it'll probably be broadcast Friday night for us. But that's the Peace Prize that awards people who are doing amazing things in terms of bringing peace and helping to build the kingdom. And then next Sunday, which is going to be Foundation Day, they'll be holding a 1 million prayer rally of hope for the salvation of our homeland, for the reunification of North and South Korea. So this is going to be focused on prayer, a prayer event. It'll be international, and it looks to be an amazing event combined with our Foundation Day celebration. So these are all the things that come up. Father and Mother Moon, all the time, since the turn of the century, since the 2000s, it seems like every year around this Lunar New Year, they had these World Summit conferences. And they got more and more inspiring every year. Even the last one just before COVID hit was incredible, the level of participation. So, today though, we're celebrating the birth of Father and Mother Moon, who we call our true parents. Father and Mother Moon, the second coming of Jesus, the second coming of Christ, the Messiah, the Savior of humankind. We're celebrating their birth today. How amazing is that? That we live in the time. Sometimes I thought, what would it be like to live at the time of Jesus? Well, right now we're living at the time of Father and Mother Moon, who Jesus called to the mission of the Messiah. Father and Mother Moon, who are now leading the way in God's providence to bring healing and restoration to the world. What an exciting time we live in. And we see the fruits of it happening in all these events and all these activities. So, every time we think about God sending the Messiah to help us build the heavenly kingdom, the question tends to come up, why did God wait so long? How come, even for Jesus to come, according to the Bible, it was 4,000 years. But, according to science, it was, millions of years. So why did God wait so long before the Messiah could come? And since Jesus, Christians, we've been thinking, Maranatha, Christ comes soon. And even the Jewish people, next day in Jerusalem, all praying and hoping that the Messiah will come soon. And everyone's expecting the Messiah to come soon. So why did it take so long? This is such an important understanding because it can cause us to struggle in our faith unless we really appreciate and understand God's love and care for us. So there's two conditions that even according to God's design for the universe, God doesn't break God's rules. He doesn't break his own rules. He created the universe. Even the principles of salvation and healing and restoration, they all use God's original design for the creation. This is why when we study the unification principle, the divine principle, the principle of creation is so important for us to understand because those principles apply to every aspect of our life. So, there's two things that have to happen before God sends the Messiah. Number one is the fulfillment of human responsibility. Again, this is very important for us as unificationists. That God has given us genuine responsibility that God does not interfere with. That means that even if it means that we're going to continue living in an evil world, until we make the actions, the conditions ourselves, God won't change things. So it's not like, magically the kingdom of heaven is going to descend from the clouds. We don't believe that. Now, the thing is, it is pretty amazing and magical how God can transform our hearts. That's quite a miracle if you ask me. And if you think about the transformation of our hearts and our relationships, that's the core of building the heavenly kingdom, right? So we've been going through Family Pledge. We'll pick it up again in a couple of weeks. But the family is the core of building the heavenly kingdom. And our own relationship with God as our heavenly parent, that loving relationship, that's the key to our fulfillment and happiness in our life. It won't be the kingdom of heaven if we're not happy, right? So God's out there to make sure that everyone experiences joy and fulfillment in our lives. And it requires our portion of responsibility for us to grow up. And so when we study the principle, and I really encourage you to take time, especially the principles of creation, and understanding the principles of how God works restoration. It's all about solving the problem that happened in the Garden of Eden and breaking the pattern, breaking the curse that we inherit from Adam and Eve. And that has to be done by us. Now, fortunately, just like if a young child, breaks something that costs $1,000 to fix, well, that young child isn't going to be able to pay that. Isn't going to be able to get it fixed. But since we have responsibility, God asks us to make a condition, an offering. And that offering is our life. To make some condition, and then through that, then miracles can occur. So sometimes we just have to step out, make the first step, and amazing things follow. I'm wrestling with that even now. I've been downsized from my work, so I have to start looking for a job. Oh boy. I'm too old to look for a job, right? But the first step is knocking on that door, calling up that person, making that, reaching out, and then God can work. If I just sit at home watching Korean dramas all day long, I admit I did that for a couple of days. What can God do? I'm waiting for someone to call me and give me a job. They don't even know I'm looking. Right? So we have our portion of responsibility to do. But when we step out, same thing with our outreach and sharing the principle with people, sharing the blessing with people, sharing with our neighbors, inviting people to come to church, inviting people to participate in programs. All we need to do is make the first step and allow God to work. Our job is to love people. Not to get them to do things. We're not selling anything, getting people to buy things. We're there to love people and to encourage and support their experience of God. And God works miracles when we take the first step, when we reach out. So the second thing, in order for God to send the Messiah, is that God prepares the environment. So the environment has to be, it's like tilling the soil. Making it ready so when the seed of true love, the seed of salvation is planted, it will grow and flourish. So, if the ground is all rock, you can drop as many seeds you want on that rock and nothing's going to grow. So creating the right environment. So, just as God, we look through the principles of restoration, we see the process for God to be able to make the foundation for Jesus Christ. And this is what I always like to look at this at Christmas time. Remembering how much sacrifice, how much condition was made in order for Jesus to be born. So again, just a quick review. It's all Jewish history. From Abraham, when Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were finally called as the chosen people, and that Jesus was going to come from the Israelites, the Messiah was going to come from them. So that began the course for them to lay the foundation for the Messiah. So we look at their history. 400 years they suffered in Egypt. And then Moses comes. And then, they spend 40 years in the wilderness, again, making conditions. And finally they enter into the promised land. The next 400 years of Jewish history is centered on judges, who are like the spiritual and religious and political leaders at the time. Lawmakers and judges. And then after that 800 years, then the last of the judges anoints Saul as the first king. And then we have 3 kings, Saul, David, and Solomon. During that time was a great time for God to be able to send Messiah. However, without the fulfillment of our human portion of responsibility, God can't do it. God won't do it. So even though the environment was set, it was right. It was a perfect time for Jesus to come, into the family of Solomon. They were a powerful empire. They could have influenced the world. But because even though the environment was right, because the conditions were wrong, that time was lost. So then we see 400 years of the divided kingdom. We see them going into Babylonian captivity for 210 years. And then another 400 years where God is preparing the world, tilling the soil again. During this time, Buddhism developed, Confucianism, Confucius, Lao Tzu, many of these teachers, even the Greek philosophers. All this is preparation for Jesus. So much work went into laying the foundation so that Jesus could come. Now, tragically, the people who were called to attend Jesus and follow Him and make the foundation to build the heavenly kingdom in His lifetime couldn't respond. So Jesus went the way of the cross to take on that responsibility. And that's when He began speaking about the second coming, that He would have to come again because He was not able to complete the mission of building a kingdom in His lifetime. So, amazing thing. If we look at Christian history, we see the exact same pattern as with Jewish history. And all this is laying the foundation for Father and Mother Moon to come. How amazing. So again, 400 years, just like 400 years in Egypt, 400 years under the Roman Empire, persecution, 400 years patriarchs. That was like they had popes in a bunch of different places, and the Pope in Rome became like the number one among equals. At the end of that 400 years, at 800 AD, the Pope crowns Charlemagne as the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. He creates a united Christian empire. Now this again is just like the time of Saul, David, and Solomon. It's the time, and also Islam. The Islam is growing, but it's not antagonistic, it's friendly. It's very friendly to Judaism and to Christianity. They see, so the relations are very friendly at that time. And yet, because of the failures of human responsibility, the environment was ready, but human responsibility was failing. And I encourage you, when we have time to dive into this, all this history is so fascinating to look at and understand. But as a result, even though the environment was ready, human responsibility wasn't fulfilled. So we have another 400 years, just like Israel, of the divided kingdom. The East and West Franks basically became France and Germany, which even France and Germany still have a little bit of irritation against each other. And then this 210 years is an interesting time. Martin Luther, from the Reformation, he calls this time the Babylonian captivity of the Pope. Because what happened was the Pope, they moved as Christians. It was a very embarrassing time. I mean, popes that were very unrighteous people, were leading. And they moved to Avignon, France, and it was so corrupt, so much corruption. And this is why Luther keeps referring to it as, it's like Babylon. Pagans. It was like, the pagans had taken captive the Pope. After 210 years of all this, and even though the Pope returns to Rome, still the church has really, there's something wrong. And that's when the Protestant Reformation, Martin Luther, many people, Calvin, Zwingli, there's many people, but begins the Protestant Reformation. And the Protestant Reformation, that's in 1517, that begins a 400-year period of modern history that's preparing the world, tilling the soil, preparing the world for the Messiah to come. Now, this is quite amazing, this last 400 years, and I encourage you, look in depth in that. I never found history all that interesting. But boy, when I started studying this 400 years and saw the patterns and how God was working, and how God is working through all these different kinds of dynamics and relationships, it's incredible. So these years add up to 1,030. And if you do just 400 years from Martin Luther, it's 1917. So, finally, the time is ready. The world is set. So, all these things go to prepare for the Messiah. So, we've got the world has to be in a good situation. You've got to deal with culture. You need to have a chosen nation. You need to have a people that you can send the Messiah to. That Messiah inside that nation also has to have an ancestry. And then that individual also has to have a character and personality to fulfill the mission of a Messiah. Well, there's a lot that goes into that. It wasn't just God said, oh, yeah, I'll pick him. No. All this preparation that goes into the second coming. So what we're celebrating when we celebrate Father and Mother Moon's birthday, it's the fruit of an incredible history of investment by God. So let's look at the preparation of the world. Culturally, it's amazing. Since the last century, we've been moving more and more to one large cultural sphere. There's probably no one on the planet that doesn't know what Coca-Cola is, right? No, it's not necessarily the best culture. But Western culture has influenced the world. And English is spoken in almost every country. You can, if you dig around, you can almost always find someone. There's this culture, and nowadays, you go to the restaurant, you order Chinese food. Oh, well, maybe I'm going to have Mexican food, or then there's Thai, and then there's Vietnamese, and then you got this, you've got restaurants covering the whole world. We have clothes. Who knows where these clothes were made, all over the world. My computer, some of it was from Taiwan, some was China, some was Korea, some was from the Philippines. The whole world has never been more connected, economically, but also a more and more common culture. We share things in common. So, we live in an amazing time, if you think about it. And then in terms of politics, after World War I, they established the League of Nations. That the goal of the League of Nations was to help nations get together better. Didn't work out so well. Still had World War II. The United Nations did better in terms of being able to bring things together. Still not quite getting the job done, but at least we're heading in the right direction. This is the foundation. Actually, the United Nations was really prepared for Father and Mother Moon and the work of the Messiah. But the goal of the United Nations is not just a bunch of nations, it's one human family under God. So the spiritual component is what's deeply missing from the United Nations. But we're on the way. What an amazing time we live in. Yeah? And then there's science. Boy, science and technology, this is unbelievable. 30 years ago, I couldn't imagine what we do now. I can chat, on my phone, I can video chat with my daughter who's in Korea. Oh, hey, wake up. She's 17 hours ahead of me. At 5 o'clock in the morning, it's like midnight for her. So, but amazing, the technology, the transportation. We could travel around the world without a thought. It's so amazing. Communications, like I said, the things we can do with our phones. 30 years ago, you needed a computer that filled this room, to do what our little computers, our little phones can do now. It's incredible. But all this is for the purpose of building the heavenly kingdom. All these things. Now, Satan is going to try to use it, and Satan does use it. The internet is an incredible tool, and Satan is using it like crazy. Pornography, poisonous ideas, all kinds of stuff. But at the same time, it's a force for good. Just like way back when we used to say TV. It could be a great force for good, or it could just make you into a dumb person, But technology has so much potential for good. It's incredible the time we live in. So as we're celebrating, Father and Mother Moon, they came because this is the time when the world is prepared. How about ethics, relationships between people? A couple hundred years ago, slavery, no big deal. The only question was, how much did you pay for that slave? And today, that's an unthinkable idea. Human rights, 200 years ago, what are you talking about, human rights? The one who has the power, the one who has the money, they can do whatever they want. No. Ethically, as a people, we've changed. Now, there's still lots of work to do. I'm not saying we're done. But in terms of the development and even the liberation of countries, that they could, instead of being colonized and controlled by another country, independence movement. Just an incredible time that we live in. All this is preparing people for building the heavenly kingdom. And then lastly, just in terms of ideas and ideology, communism is Satan's effort to build the kingdom of heaven. Communism, but the thing is, because everyone is longing for and yearning for that kind of united world, a world where we get along, when communists, and this Marxist ideas or the new critical theories or, all this stuff that's really Cain-type resentment-based promises a good future, people want to grab onto it because we all want a good future. And even democracy, it's incredible, how the strides of having freedom that people have in the world. Now, but still, democracy doesn't get us all the way there. We need Godism, right? That's the ideology that we need. We need to bring God into every aspect of life in our world. So, we're living in an incredible time. The world has been prepared. Everything is ready. So now, we need a chosen nation. We need the nation that God is going to send the Messiah to. So, a nation that God has to prepare. So, let's look at it. This is from the Divine Principle. These are 5 qualities. In order to send the Messiah, God needs a landing place. So the chosen nation, the people of Israel, had a culture, they were developed, they were prepared to receive Jesus. If Jesus had just come to Rome, they wouldn't know what to do with him. But the Jewish people had that foundation. So, the chosen nation needs a national condition of indemnity, of sacrifices, making offering, making a condition. It also needs to be a place where God and Satan, the front line. So what do we see in Korea, right? Communism and free democracy, the front line between God and Satan. Object partner of God's heart means the people who can appreciate suffering and sorrow. Honestly speaking, if the Messiah came to America, United States American, half the world would just be resentful. That arrogant, rich American telling us what to do, right? But the Messiah comes from a country filled with suffering and sorrow. That was, a really destroyed third world country after World War II, and especially even after the Korean War. Devastated nation. Now, someone who comes from that nation, the world can respond to. Also, messianic prophecies. Now, a lot of countries, have had their messianic prophecies. I knew the Messiah was going to come to America, right? To my favorite country. Yeah, Germany was convinced, the Messiah was going to come to Germany. Russia's got lots of them. The whole world. But it's important that that's also connected with a Christian heart to be able to appreciate. And the movement, the revival movements that happen, even pre-Christian in Korea, bringing together the perspective of the Messiah coming. And especially at the time, around the 1900s, so many Christian movements really had lots of prophecies calling them that the Messiah is going to be born in Korea. And finally, just the culmination of all civilizations. I mean, you see everything, all the world's religions appear in Korea. Amazing when you think about Korea. It's like we see it as the third Israel. The Israelites went 400 years of suffering in Egypt. Christianity went under 400 years under Rome. Korea had their 40 years under persecution in Japan, and really a lot of suffering and tragedy during that time. So, for us, Korea meets the qualifications. So then, we need a lineage. Now, if you look at the New Testament, 2 of the chapters focus on Jesus' lineage. Outline it. Because lineage is important, or ancestry. Now, I'm not going to go into Father and Mother Moon's ancestry, but again, there's an internal foundation that takes in order for God to finally be able to send the Messiah. That's what we're celebrating today. So, true parents, the Messiah, the saviors of the world. Father Moon was born in 1920, and Mother Moon was born in 1943. And they were actually born in the northwest side of Korea, up in North Korea. See where Pyongyang is? Well, they're just up. Pyongyang is in this lower part, and then up, just almost right across a river or the bay from each other. But that's what we're celebrating today. Today we're celebrating the birth of the Messiah. And just as I want us to always remember the conditions that were made for Jesus to be born, these conditions were also made for Father and Mother Moon to be born. Incredible sacrifices. And then there's all the personal and internal development that they had to do themselves. So even though they were called, still they had their portion of responsibility. This is the time for building God's kingdom. The environment is obviously prepared. What God needs now is the fulfillment of human responsibility. And that's up to us. The people who know the calling. It's amazing that we are alive at this time. Each one of us has a different calling, a different mission, a different quality or aspect or skills that we can use to build the heavenly kingdom, that God needs us to use. our relationships with people, our ability to do things, design, create. I'm looking for that singer that can come up and help me lead songs better. Someone has that gift. So all of these things, we work together to build a kingdom. Everything is ripe and ready. Father and Mother Moon have definitely fulfilled their portion of responsibility. And yet, still, human responsibility. This is why there's so many events. We're doing so many projects, encouraging and raising up people to see God's perspective in everything. So in my own life, I need to check myself. How am I doing? Am I following my calling? Do I recognize what God is asking me to do? Dr. Young gave a great talk this morning about we have to connect with our original mind's mission. And that's how we'll find happiness in our life. When we connect with the way we were designed by God and make the contribution to making this world a better place. Everything is developed based on our portion of responsibility. So, we've got to make the first step, right? And a lot of times that first step is the scariest. This is where faith comes in. We have to just step out, but know that God is always with us and anxious to work in our lives and anxious to work through us to impact in a positive way the people in the world around us. So, let me finish off with reading this. This is from Father Moon. This is 2004 on their birthday celebration. Father Moon says, "This banquet was prepared to celebrate my 81st birthday and the birthday of my wife, Dr. Hak Jahan Moon. Instead of receiving congratulations on our birthdays, though, the two of us would prefer to offer this banquet to the saints and sages in the spirit world who are present here now, to the blessed families in the spirit world, and to the participants of the World Summit on Leadership and Governance." Right? Just like there's going to be another World Summit, there was a World Summit back then. And then he says specifically to all the people participating in the summit, "I understand that you have been engaged in many discussions and meetings during the past few days on the theme, Good Governance for a World in Crisis. I know that your hard work and passion will combine to create the opportunity for new hopes and dreams to be planted in a world that, until now, seems to slide deeper into crisis with each passing day." So that was said 18 years ago. It applies just exactly today. But bringing together people from diverse perspectives and being people who actively contribute to making a difference in the world, to bringing healing in our environment. This is what we're called to do. This is the exciting life that we have and the hope that God has for us. So, happy birthday to parents. Thank you so much, Heavenly Parent. We're so grateful for our two parents today. Let me offer a prayer and close. Good morning, Father, Mother God, our loving Heavenly Parent. Thank you so much for the chance we have to participate in your providence of restoration healing. It is an amazing time in history when the whole world has been prepared in such a powerful way. We know you have so much hope. You are so excited to see what each one of us is going to do with the gifts and talents that you gave us. We pray that we can connect with your heart and your perspective. Please, Heavenly Parent, all the places of fear and hesitation that block us from being able to be powerful instruments of your goodness, of your healing in the world around us. Please help us, free us of those fears, and help us to connect deeply with your heart and your love. We long so much to be the sons and daughters to bring comfort to your heart and to bring healing to the world and environment around us. We are so grateful for Father and Mother Moon, our loving true parents, for the mission that they've taken on, and True Mother who now continues to persevere, absolutely determined to bring victory for you, to comfort your heart, and to build the heavenly kingdom in her lifetime. So we thank you. Join together as your sons and daughters, grateful, and offer this together. Amen and Jew.